everybody. I want to start off by apologizing. I look disgusting, but there's no help for it right now. And second of all, apologize and much more importantly, explain what the heck has been going on. I know most of you probably never expected to hear from Robert and I online again. Maybe even you thought we were dead, but no, we're still alive. We're still here. But I need to tell you why. So, our last video was probably around February or March of last year. It is now December, almost 31st, but I wanted at least one more video out just as succinctly as possible to explain and go over what has happened this year, because it has been something else. Our closest friends and family members already know a lot about this. They've been helping us with a lot of things, but most of you online don't, and I really feel bad about that because you've been a great big help and support for us. So we'll start off where our last video left off. We had just gotten everything together so that we could start filling out our home study. It's a big pile of paperwork, it's about that thick, but it's not just fill in the dots. It's make appointments with the doctor, and you got to get fingerprinted, and you have to go through a bunch of background stuff, scan a bunch of documents. It's very time consuming. You need a lot of appointments that, especially with COVID restrictions, take a long time. Well, we decided we weren't going to film a lot of that because it was really boring, and we would just film, yay, we did it, we're about to turn our paperwork in. And we got to that point where we were done with our paperwork. We had one more thing to do. I think we just had to pay the fee, get an inspection, and turn the paperwork in. That was it. The home study, the home visit was the last thing. And we were almost to the end of that long road and about to make our next film when we got a note on our front door. Now this was probably around April, I think May of 2021, and I don't know about anywhere else, but in our neck of the woods, the housing market exploded. We had $500 a month rentals going for $1,500, $2,000 a month. We had $100,000, $200,000 houses going for $500,000, $800,000. It was ridiculous. Everything exploded to 3-4 times its value, and it was absolute madness. I have never seen anything like that in my adult life before, and I desperately hope I don't see it again. But we had been locked into a very reasonable contract that was supposed to last for quite a while, we thought. Turns out the housing management property that owned our property, they decided that as long as they remained in the contract with us, they were missing out on a paycheck that was very hefty and once in a lifetime of an opportunity to cash in on. But they couldn't legally get rid of us without a reason. So they pulled up a late payment that we'd made probably 3 or 4 months before and used it as a loophole to make it so that they could get rid of us. But they didn't want to have to deal with the paperwork, so they actually, instead, they sent us an ultimatum. They said, you can get out and break the contract of your own free will in 3 days, or we evict you. Anyone who's ever rented knows that an eviction makes getting another rental property extremely difficult because it's legal jargon for deadbeat, and nobody wants to rent to you. So in the most hectic 3 days of my life, we rented a storage shed. We packed up and shoved every single thing we owned into that shed, put our clothes into some suitcases, and went to my mom's house to figure out what to do. As it turned out, my sister, she just paid off her car, she was feeling celebratory, and so she went off and bought herself an RV. But she didn't have anything to do with it. So she brought it over to my mom's house, parked it in the backyard, and rented it to us for the cost of the RV payments, which is a ridiculously good rent, I might add. But once we moved in, the housing market did not come down, and we tried everything. We were in that little trailer for 7 months. We got extra jobs. Robert got a new job. We did everything we could to increase our income. We cut out everything we possibly could. We were living basically on microwave meals. And we could not get to a point where we could afford even the cheapest apartments. And the apartments we could almost afford in other cities outside of where we were living at the time, they were gone before we could even inquire about them. It was madness for 7 months. Well, around November, It's getting cold. We're about to freeze out of our little RV that's not made for winter living. And Robert gets a phone call from a friend of his he hasn't seen in years. Now, this particular friend happens to own several businesses. And he calls up Robert. He says, I just made a business contract with the Boy Scouts of America. Now, the Boy Scouts have a lot of camps, especially in this area. One in particular is called Krupp Scout Hollow. About 3-4 acres worth of property. Campsites, the whole shebang. It's very nice. But it's not used anymore. The Boy Scouts don't really have something to use it for. They have jamborees and stuff maybe 1-2 weeks out of the whole year. So he reaches out and he says, I need a headquarters. I need a place to run all of my multiple businesses out of. Can I rent this property from you? And they say yes. And it becomes a very beneficial deal for both of them. He gets a lot of not only property to run out of, but there's buildings on the property, there's a fort on the property, campsite, there's a lot of assets that come with the property he gets use of. And then in order to make the rent low enough for the overhead not to be too high, the camp gets a lot of perks out of the arrangement as well, not only rent, but certain percentages of different things and other perks. Well, one of these perks is a caretaker who will not only shovel the snow and mow the lawns and take care of the property, but will also restore a lot of the stuff that has just been run down around the place. And this friend, it wasn't until after the contract was all taken care of, everything was done, he realized he didn't really have the time he thought he was going to have for the caretaking aspect of the contract. And so he didn't want his contract to fall apart. So he calls Robert and he says, can you do it? It's not going to take up enough time that you're going to have to give up your job, just that you're going to have to work part-time around the house. But it does come with a house that you can live in, and it's a block from your new job. We jumped on that so hard. We were so excited. We moved in probably November 10th, 11th. See, before the property was a camp, it was a farm. And the farmhouse was still there, which is where we ended up being. That's where I'm filming right now. I think it was built 1919. And it is one of the first places that needed a lot of love. So we get in here. We're so excited. We're going to start filming. We're going to start working on our adoption again. We're back on our feet. And then we see, well, this kind of monstrosity. That is a wall. In here, this is in the kitchen. This right here, that crack goes all the way to the outside of the building. And that's just a few of the structural things. Mostly what we've been working on over the last 2 months is in here. I don't know how well you can see it. I'm kind of blind pointing the camera. But this is our hallway. Just our front hall. We've had to rip up the entire floor, retile it. I've never tiled before now. That was an adventure. Paint the walls. That door is not sitting in its frame right. We have to completely rehang it. We need to we had to re-foam insulate all the windows. They were not the frames of the windows weren't sitting right. A lot of man hours for a lot of work to make it properly livable. We're in this place for a minimum of a year before the contract gets renewed, if it gets renewed. So we have plenty of time to work on it. But we also have our adoption paperwork that is only good for a year, which ends probably around the same time that our last video was, February, March of 2022. So we're trying to hustle our butt, work all day at work, and come home and work all night on the house. It'll be worth it, though, because by the time we're finally done with this place and we have it at a livable, comfortable, safe place for little kids, we can finish our adoption. Well, our home study paperwork is all still good. It's all still filled out. We just got to update a couple of things on the address. Some of my license needs to be renewed and re-put on there. But if we can get it done in a couple of months, we might still just be able to pull this off. It's going to be a squeaker, but we're not giving up. We want to be a family too bad. That's what's been going on. That's where we're at. We love you guys. I hope more videos to come in the new year. Peace and love, and a happy new year.